Welcome back to the Ram Revival, another hot one here in the shop, and what we have got going on, that's right over here. All you have missed is me cleaning. I had to get some sheet metal and a bunch of body panels out of this crevice here so I could slide the tank. All we've literally done. Again, with this being a 4-wheel drive and having the lift, I had zero issues just sliding it out right here. So the tank where we left it was basically where the camera's at. Slid it forward, slid it up. There is our rear brace right here. There is the front brace. Front brace going to be a little bit longer. If you ever get those two confused, we'll compare them better here before we install. But all we did is as you can tell by the casters, we threw it on a tiny, it's the only Harbor Freight movers dolly I had for you. We've sat it up there, and there she blows. This is how it stands, how it left. Still 13 plus gallons in it. That is a look at the factory fuel pump. We've got all the factory connections. This one right here, again, would be our vent. Let's see. I'm trying to get you a better look at this thing. I guess it's a little bit better in this lighting. So right there, the thin hose is the vent. Thick, bigger hose is going to be your fill tube. You'll note they're clean where we clean them before we move them. That's good. Our EVAP line, okay, right here, high point in the tank, comes down. This is all you've got to disconnect if you're dropping the tank, is that one right there. Or you see that gray clip? It comes up over here. Obviously, to get the fuel pump out, we're going to have to disconnect it there. It's much easier for me to do as little as possible in an awkward position under the truck, so that's what we did. Have that taken care of. The blue rag is just there to, kind of catch any residual fuel. I've got socks or shop rags plugging all of the lines as best I can. The heat shield, kind of interesting. There are bosses. You're looking at 1. You're looking at number 2. You're looking at number 3. All along here that you would think would have had clips like we have over there. And they're not present. That's why this thing kind of flops. Golly, this is the 3rd one of those damn things. Right there. It's always at a bad time. I don't know where they're coming from. I've eradicated 2. It looks like I've got a number 3 to deal with. This is what I told you about the other night when spiders were running under the door. It's not cool when you catch something that size in your peripheral and you're flat on your back with your head exposed. So once again, this is I guess it's that time of year. So if you see the guy, you see the guy. If you don't, well, you'll forever be haunted. So anyway, trying to catch my train of thought, we have the speed clips over there, and it just kind of seems like there should have been some on this side as well. I would keep this from flopping in the breeze. It's technically held on by those 2 clips is all that's keeping it in place, and then the straps, which actually hold the heat shield as well. So I'm not sure what spider that is. I should know this. I have my wildlife biology friend I can send pictures to you, but I don't know if it's a wolf spider. Sweat's going in my eyes at a very inopportune time. It doesn't seem like he's interested in attacking me, but it's just the whole prospect of my legs are on the floor a lot of times, and when something's scratching or itching, I'd like knowing it's not that thing. So I'll try to wrap this up so I can take care of that. But right here, we've got all the factory markings, barcodes, everything. Looks like an 1148 and a 99. Again, this is the back side. There's the EVAP line from this angle. There is our fill and our vent. That is the fuel pump assembly over there. So the electrical connector is here. That's your main fuel line. That one right there is EVAP. Our first order of business before we drain this thing using our pump stand that we built, which hopefully I've released that video in sequence for you, is raise the door because I'm sweating bullets now. And, there's still a loose Doberman out here. I don't know about that, but right there, I know you can't really see it that good anymore, so we'll zoom in. We do have a special tool for that, but I want to clean. I just want to get this cleaned up. So I think what I'm going to do this time, I use like a detailer on our skid plate, which if I don't trip over a jack or slide on a creeper, it's like a Harbor Freight promo in here. This looks really clean when you leave, and then as it dries overnight, there's like residual dirt. So I think what I'm going to do is mix up some car wash soap and water and see if I get better results from that. So I've got a brush somewhere in this area, and we'll just clean it up real nice. Then we'll do everything else. I want to highlight this though because I'm proud of it. Look, I can walk all the way from the front of the truck to the back of the truck again. It's awesome. I've had some stuff I can't talk about that's just kind of sat here. You'll see that on a different project in the future, but it was just kind of stuck here, and it's gone now. I've got it leaning up against the pallet rack, so it's in the back of the shop. It gives me the ability to basically clean this, swing it, and get it back under the truck. So with that said, I guess I'm going to mix up some soapy water. Hope I don't have a friend run up my leg. And we'll get this thing cleaned up. So pay attention to her, because it's going to, last time it'll be this dirty for a while. Alright, so that bottle was up to the top blue mark just below where it necks down towards the top, and we made a lot of progress there. Obviously we're not done, but it's substantially cleaner than it was. That's what we were going for. We'll finish it out probably when it's evacuated with fuel. That way it's much easier to handle. We can flip it around, do the bottom, all that stuff. But if I take you over here, we're going to showcase what we need to do now, which is utilize this thing. This is from OEM Tools. This is, I believe, their part number 25156. And if I can dump it out of the bag, which I conveniently pre-cut to save you precious viewing time. This is what it is. You're probably thinking, like, what in the world is that thing? It looks idiotic. It's like a slotted piece of flat stock with some bolts, and then they're threaded into some Lego man type of a contraption. Well, this is actually, if we look at what their exact description is, and you could read it, which is difficult to do, it is a fuel pump module spanner wrench. So now think back to the lid on our gas tank over there, and the fuel pump is held in with funky looking little thing. Now there's multiple schools of thought there. Number one, you can come in with a screwdriver and a hammer and just tap it off. Dangerous thing there, particularly in our case with half a tank of fuel, is sparks. You don't want to do that, so you use a brass punch. A lot of people are not going to have a brass punch laying around. Your next option is to use a rubber mallet on the screwdriver. Again, not the best thing you could do, especially for the sake of your gas cap. That's a locking ring that you'll have to reuse, but it is an option if you don't have the brass. The other thing you can do, which most people will have laying around, substitute a block of wood for the screwdriver. I'm talking like a 2x4. Obviously better than that would be like a 1x4, maybe even cut it down if you need to, but you're just going to hit the locking rings and just tap it off. Now this would be the official tool. You usually see these in expensive kits that you don't need but one item from, and that's how this usually comes. It's in a blow molded case. It has like quick disconnects for Ford, Chevy, everything else. This is what I need for Chrysler. This is all I'm interested in. I don't care about Ford, I care about Chevy. If I was in that position, I would probably grab a match and just be done with them. But this right here, let's go ahead and kind of walk you over. Not bad for 20 bucks. It's not something you're going to use all the time, but anytime you need to use it, you will be able to. This one side's a little tight, but if I can one-hand it, you can probably use two hands. Almost have it spaced just right. Went a little too wide, and it's pretty much at max extension there. So that is good to know. If you thought you could use this and you have something with a bigger lock ring or something, it's not going to be this tool. Maybe you could put two of them together or something like that. But this is what it does. If we come in and I take this rag out for you, you'll note there are these little ridges, right? And so the school of thought, again, nice flat blade. This is your fat part. The dangerous thing there is you're closer to incidentally striking that. But as long as you stayed away, you could tap it. Obviously, it's going to be tight and loose, right? And you're going to have to hit it both ways. So you'd want to be as far away from the regulator as you possibly can. You don't want to chip your electrical connector. You don't want to damage your EVAP line. So probably this spot would be ideal. Now the catch is, when you're doing that, just like I said, the screwdriver, you're going to mar this thing up. And also, it's not just going to be this one. You're probably going to stay in this position, and you're going to tap, tap, tap till you can't, and then you're going to come to this guy. So you're going to beat it up. Over time, let's say that you have a limit of a fuel pump, and then it fails in 2 to 3 years, and you do this again and again, you're going to have to eventually replace this thing. It's plastic, right? So, the brass punch, same thing. It'd be a little easier on the plastic, but it's still going to chew it up. It's also way safer for you. Again, even if this is evacuated, even if it's almost empty, it's a situation where you're still going to have the vapors. You're going to have a little bit of gas that you didn't pump out. And by that, I mean the vehicle. If you like run this till you can't, right? There's still going to be a little bit of fuel in there. You don't want to die doing something like this. That's stupid. So brass is a good option, and again, the block of wood, it would be a pain in the butt, but it is safe. So the other thing, again, most parts stores, you're probably gonna have to get the whole kit, but you could rent this, just put down the deposit for 40, 50 bucks, whatever they charge you, and go to town. But this, the way it's gonna work, again, you can kind of see these little legs right here. Man, that lighting's terrible. This is what happens. I try to have fresh air in here and it just wreaks havoc for us. But I think right there, we take the Lego man and you pretend like he's taking a leak in your fuel tank. That's what it looks like, right? So you kind of saddle it just like this, and you do it on an opposing flat, which we're so close to having this position just right. Obviously, we need to tighten that down, but if you look in the middle, there's a 3/8 drive. That's why that's square. So this has a lot of adjustability. This is almost maxed out to do this one, but it will work on pretty much anything this size, slightly bigger or way smaller. So it could be a worthwhile investment for you if you maintain a fleet of vehicles. But it's what I went with. It'll keep the locking ring in place for as long as possible, and it's the safest way to do it. So I'm gonna set this thing up. We will break this free. Alright, so to disconnect this line is actually the easiest of anything, and you just simply squeeze in and pull. So you can see there, I thought I was going to need some pick tools, didn't even need them. So just squeeze, get it off. Again, be careful, they're fragile, they're delicate. It's better to not have to replace it and spend the money. We did want that, of course, disconnected before we start spinning this, so now we're ready to do just that. The thing is it's going to be on there pretty tight. The other thing that I did, I went ahead and cracked open my new fuel pump. I went with one from Carter. We'll cover that here in a second, but I was thinking, hey, instead of taking this off, if I have to just reuse this EVAP piece, I should just pry it off here right now, not even bother the connection. Carter one's cool. It's already got one, so everything's golden there. That's why we went ahead and disconnected. But now we're going to take the OEM deal. Half fits sloppy, 12 fits tight. It's probably metric bolts, so I'm gonna run with that. But you just barely have to tap them out almost all the way. Can put it down. I can tell you, as I tried to turn just initially, that sucker was wanting to take the whole tank with it. This, keep in mind, I could take it off the dolly, but I mean, this is like 13, 15 gallons of gas. That's 75, 90 pounds, somewhere just shy of 100. Likely, and so it's able to spin it. That thing is on there, and again, that's another reason to have the tool, or just be extremely cautious. One stupid little spark and this could all go terribly wrong. You're probably safe, but there's always that one time you don't want to be the asterisks or the statistics. Play it safe, do it right, and that's what we're going to set up to do right now. Something else I want to highlight before I get too far, in case you have any questions on installation, which we don't cover in that part. Think of where you're at, think of what you're looking at. So the tank has spun, it's no longer under the vehicle. This would be towards the tailgate. Thick tube here is going to be your filler. This one is the vent. This would all face out towards the bedside of the vehicle, the external side, right? Heat shields on the inside, this is facing out. And when you come in, that means directly facing out, you're going to have your factory fuel line and the electrical connector. Opposite of that, you're going to have the EVAP line. Now, in terms of the lock ring orientation, you can make paint marks, you can do whatever you want to, but it's important that we note right here on the fuel pump assembly, this module has this triangle, right? Pointer, if you will. Ignore the lock ring, but just pay attention to that triangle right there. I'm going to zoom in on it for you, okay? This little guy right here, and it's pointing towards this slot. Okay, there it is. There's not another spot along this entire lock ring on the body of the tank where you have that slot. So you're going to do what when you install? You're going to position the pump with that facing into those slots. If for some reason your pump module does not have that, you're going to pay attention to how this comes out. So I'm going to go ahead now and see if I can break this thing free. Alright, had to put a little bit of effort into this one, but I think now I can one-hander. What I'm trying to do is keep my hand from flying off of the ratchet, and I don't know that I can do that, because if my hand flies off and the tool flies, I've got a painted bumper because it's a sport. Guess I'm going to have to get my second hand back, and then I'll kind of showcase how this whole thing would work. Alright, and I'm glad I did that and wasn't trying to film and force something, because as I came back around turning it more, the body on the OEM standoff right there, it actually does extend in far enough to hit your fuel line. So we're gonna go ahead. I've repositioned, just came off that peg, jumped over here. I'll keep spinning it and I'll try to get it. Maybe I can do it now. It's just so awkward on this dolly. There we go. You can kind of see what's going on, and then always watch where you're at because you have the risk of that happening. That's why I like to use my other hand to apply downward force. But the main thing, you don't want to like whack this and generate sparks. So that would be bad. But I'm going to go ahead. You get the idea on how this works. I would have to say it's far, far more efficient, especially if safety involved in the screwdriver method. And at 20 bucks, you know, unless this is some vehicle you're going to flip or something, I think it's a worthwhile investment. Personal opinion. I'm going to go ahead and spin this thing off. We'll be ready to extract the fuel pump assembly. Alright, so right now, just like when you go to reinstall it, there's going to be an awkward fit here because it's going to have to come down and then over. But if I fish this off, that's all there is to it. So this is your lock ring. And you can see by me spinning this around, it is not chewed up, which is awesome. Granted, I'm sure you could buy one of these sometimes. It's stupid little parts like this. It'll really screw you over. So keep that in mind. But we've got it off. This is our fuel pump module assembly. It's going to be a deal. You may have to use a flat blade to kind of get up under there. Before you do that, this is another chance to clean, particularly if you're just replacing the pump. This would apply, obviously, if the tank was still in the truck. If you're just doing a quick pump job, you got the bed jacked up, tank dropped, whatever you're doing, if you're not going to clean the tank, you're not going to pump and evacuate it, you do not want that crud falling in to your tank. So what I'm going to do is get all of this popped out after I shop vac it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Alright, so I've gone ahead and dropped the carter in and we're ready to put the lock ring back on. Just kidding, this is still the factory one, it's just that clean. Again, take the extra time. You don't want crud in your tank, particularly if you're not evacuating all of the fuel like I'm doing. So this is still the Chrysler OE pump, and I've got an issue. It's dark outside. Mosquitoes have been coming in like the last 30 minutes. There's still that unknown wolf spider thing over there, which I've not killed yet. And I don't really want, I've not eaten either, it's pretty late, but the main thing is I don't want to be like popping that off, getting all the fumes released in here and then firing it up and transferring it or letting it sit overnight or something. So I think this is a good stop point for now. So again, think about this stuff. If you run out of daylight, you know, where are you going to be at? What do you want to do? So the main thing is just, again, cover all your ports, keep everything nice and clean, and think about the fumes as well. So in this case, if the mosquitoes weren't so bad and I didn't have like an inundation of giant spiders, we'd probably just keep plugging along. But as is, I'm going to run in, heat up some pizza, and we will have daylight, hopefully with no mosquitoes and fewer bugs, to knock this out. So pretty simple stuff. Again, I guess I will maybe showcase the carter to you before we go. Alright, so where we left off, I've just kind of cleaned the tank up some more, and we're going to finish cleaning it, of course, from the bottom side here in a little bit. But factory pump module, we need to get it out. It's going to have sort of a reserve tank, if you will, kind of a plastic section that keeps the fuel stacked inside, so the pump just, you know, automatically has fuel. And if we can, I don't know if I can do this one-handed or not. There we go. We want to try, that's actually, I was gonna say it's dry, there's some fuel in there. I'm gonna need my second hand, but I'm also gonna have to get this EVAP line off, which I do have it off, my apologies. And, let's see. Trying to, can't really see too great with the sun. Huh. Well, I've got to have two hands, but that kind of shows you how it lifts out. It wasn't too bad of a suction at all on this guy, but there's a sending unit we'll want to tilt for, but what I'm wanting to do, if possible, is have this sit here, and then I can get my little pump stand, and I can actually evacuate the fuel from this module, and then we'll be able to just lift the module out, set it off to the side, and then have full-on access to the fuel that we can empty out. So like I said, I've got the door cracked for the fumes, and it's just, it makes the lighting kind of bad, but you cannot really, I think you can tell. I mean, if you see the yellowed plastic, this was originally white, it's all yellowed, and then if you drop down in there, there's sort of a center section with the pump. Yeah, there's just fuel down in the bottom of that. So you know, I think you can see the line of fuel right there. If I tilt the camera and you're looking at it, it's the dark area towards the bottom. So I'm going to get my pump stand and I'm going to see if I can siphon that out, and I'll kind of showcase that process. Alright, so it's really windy out here, probably hard to hear me, but a little pump stand worked like a charm. This is the end of it. There's our 2 5-gallon jugs from Sunoco. And, I'd say probably 12-ish gallons. There's a little bit in there. It was to the point I was having to just constantly rock the tank back and forth and try to keep it from falling and try to keep the hose down. It's a situation where like a flat-lined hose would be really nice, or something crushed. Basically this is still on the coil since it's brand new, but I think it's pretty well done. I'm going to stand the tank up on this little table and clean it. The old pump is there. We'll kind of do a comparison of those two. Might check the fuel sending unit, but it seemed to be pretty spot on. So that is that. That saved me a ton of time, and I can use it on the mower over there and all sorts of stuff. So all in all, it is a win. I'm going to get this wrapped up. I'm going to clean it out here. I hate that it's this windy, but I'll get it cleaned up and get it back in the shop with the pump so it's safe and crud doesn't fall in the hole. Alright, pay attention to this. This is simulating full. This would be simulating empty. Okay, that's our float. This is the factory unit. If we come in here and we take our multimeter, we're on ohms, and we go across the center 2 pins. I'm going to try to set this up where you can see it. The best way to do it may actually be... Jeez. Okay, you can see OL. That's what you need to see. So, right here. There we go, we're checking. I'm going to pin 2 and pin 3, or the center 2, however you want to call these. And right there you're seeing .45, 46. Let me get the float up all the way. Right there, we're just going to call that 26.5, okay? I'm now going to lower the float, which I'm dare not going to show you. You'll just have to take my word for it, because this will be a nightmare to set back up. Float is now in the low position. Again, we're going to come into pins 2 and pin 3. And you can see we're about 261, okay? That's honestly about the range you need to see. The book is going to say 10 to, I think, 170-ish or something like that, but you get the idea. If you've got something real close or something that doesn't register at all, fuel sending unit. Reason I point that out, we're going to compare that to the brand new Carter. So this was the OE. I'm going to leave the camera right where it is, and we're going to check the Carter. Alright, so I think you can still see the OL there. Now we're going to come in. This is the Carter, and I'm going to touch pin. Man, I'm running out of space here. We're going to go to pin 2 and pin 3. So it's reading right, almost factory. We're going to call that 24.5. I think, what were we, 26.5? This is full up position. Now I'm going to go to the full empty position. The Carter pump, very nice. It actually had the switch, or the float attached, I should say. The actual float itself is bagged. We'll want to remember to take that off. But now we're in the full empty. We're going to go 2. We're going 3. And 224.5. So those will be our baselines. I'll remember to write those down when I edit the video. But that's where we stand. That's what you kind of want to check. So this was a ridiculous setup. You went right down there in the tailgate crevice. But this is it, man. This is the sweet little Carter. So OE right there is a faded yellow nasty gas, and then this is the Carter, and it's beautiful. It's brand new. It's what this should look like and did look like when it was new. I do not know the OEM. I don't know if it was Carter, if it was Delphi, Denso, so I don't know. I can't see any marks on it that I've found so far. I haven't really done a thorough job looking. Everything seems to be in place. A lot of times you'll have to pop this EVAP lid off. You'll note this one is present on the Carter. That's still the same 4-pin connector just like we have. If I orient it just like this, that's going to be our barbed in. The only thing I think we're going to have to transfer over is that little turquoise, teal, sky blue thing. And that'll just tuck in on this spot. You'll note the Hydramat or fuel sock or whatever you want to call it down there. It's very nice. Again, the float, I did not attach that. It was already intact. It looks to be very, very similar to the factory float. Obviously, this one has some wear on it. That could be our variances. And then if we lift this up, we have a new gasket. So you want to make sure that you use the new gasket. I know this could be reused, but you don't want to deal with the vapors. Get the new one on there, orient it the same way. Take this as your opportunity to make sure everything is looking good. And then we're just going to drop this thing down. Let's see if we can locate our arrow. Little delta triangle I told you about. It's right there. That's what we're going to line up with our 2 slots. So, again, my apologies on the whole float level thing. I thought that was worth noting. Then again, you know, the book is going to have its own specs. The new parts are going to vary. Your OEM one, it could be super accurate, could vary. But you're looking for a big range like that. If you don't have a big range, there's a problem. And you're going to need to mess around with this sucker right here. All right, that's going to be your fuel level sending unit. So that's it. Basically, for the Carter, we just need to get the gasket on. Then we're going to get this bag off, and then we need to transfer that little fitting right there, which could possibly be the most difficult thing we're going to do. And then I'm excited to stick it in there and get the lock ring on. Then we can continue cleaning the exterior of the tank, but the interior of the tank I've cleaned up. I set a piece of plywood over it to keep crud out of it. Super windy outside. It's just the facts of life here, but Carter pump looking good. Again, the part number on this one, the one I brought in, P74801M. So I'm going to go ahead and get this all set up. It looks to be a good match. I'll look for any other discrepancies, as should you, regardless of what OEM or aftermarket pump you go with, and we will see how we pan out. Alright, so the gasket was very nice, went on pretty easy, didn't have to do anything crazy. You've got a flanged end and then kind of a tapered end. You want the tapered bell to be down. You want the flanged end that would match the OD of the plastic ring cap to be towards the top. In fact, you can kind of see it there. This will be your flat side that again mates up against that plastic surface. That will allow it to come in. This creates your suction and your seal. The little piece there, we pried off with those 2 Stavila picks. Pretty easy. Tried to clean it up. It just kind of got mangled as we attempted to take that off from the passenger side under the truck in a precarious position. Our wire colors, if we ever want to note it, I know you can't see it super well there, but just going by what's the top connector, we would have red. The middle 2 are purple, and the bottom is black. So the purple, the mid 2, come over here, and if you can trace them, they both go to the fuel level sending unit. That means, of course, your red and black are going to power the pump, which you can kind of see them terminating down in there. So we've got this thing pretty well prepped. All I've got to do is get this off, then I'm going to go out, swat mosquitoes away from me, and I'm going to lift the plywood off and make sure the tank is still clean. It didn't have much sediment in it at all, which was great to see. Just like a little bit here and there. You can kind of see some on the rag, and actually on this Hydramat or sock or filter, you'll see like a little bit of stuff there. That's kind of about what we mimicked when we took it apart. So, oh, that's gonna fall. Okay. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to get this in there. My main thing is just to seal the tank up so crud doesn't come in. That's very important to me. Then we can continue cleaning the bottom side of the tank. We can continue cleaning underside of the truck and the skid plate and everything else we want to do. But getting the tank sealed up and drained was very important. That was a goal today, and it looks like we're going to knock that out. Now, it's very hard to just buy this for some reason. This would be like your filter, your Hydramat. It's what goes pre-pump, if you will. It should be available. It blows my mind it's not. I guess their logic is if you pull this out, you'd be better off replacing the pump. That said, you know, it's going to be a sub $10 part. pumps, going to range 50 to 200 depending on what you go with. So but it is something that should come off very easily. Just a little clip there, same thing on the flip side. And again, you can see OE match. That's what I was looking for. So should be home for you on that front. Just unbag this, that's very important, and tuck it in, kind of come in at an angle. This is a vantage point we've not looked at just yet. So if I bring that back all the way, we bring this back. We just want to match up our float switches. So coming off, we're going at like a 45, and kick back, we create a little V or a mountain. Then we come down to the slide angle. We're coming down to the slide angle, almost looks bigger here. And then this comes down, and this comes down. Let's say it's going to be about the same. So again, you'll just monitor that. In my case, you know, virgin tank, if I go and I put 13 gallons exactly in this, I know I should be about half a tank. So if you're sitting there at a quarter or 3/4 or worse than that, you might have issues. Just be aware of it from the get-go. Don't be like cruising down the highway out of town and, you know, run out of gas because you had 1/8 of a tank when you thought you had 3/4 or something stupid. So I'm going to get this thing in there, and we will continue cleaning and making nice progress on this. Alright, so I kind of had to wrap it up. I started getting inundated with mosquitoes and whatnot. So a little pump stand worked beautifully. That thing's going to be super awesome, especially like with small engine stuff, lawnmowers and things like that. It'll evacuate the tank super fast. And, of course, we can use it for project car stuff like this. The only real downside is what you see here and here. This stuff was coiled. It was a 20-foot coil of 5/16 tubing, and that crud wants to stay coiled. Luckily, the tank, when you pull that fuel module out, it's a very large hole. I was just able to stick my hand down in there. Again, that's part of the reason I couldn't film. Worked fine for a little while, and then as you start to get to like the bottom, I don't know, 1/8 of a tank or so, I kind of had to hold it. So that's what we did, but it worked awesome. Cannot wait to continue using that thing. Factory tank is out. Looks like it was not quite up to spec in terms of the sending unit. If the book I have is correct, that's the big question, you know, like what model year and did it change year model to year model. Still technically functional. It's just a deal where when you have to evacuate the fuel, in my case, it makes sense to just replace it. The Carter unit looks pretty solid. I'm happy with that. It also came with everything except for the fitting for the main fuel line, and what I mean by that is just that little blue catch, if you will. So kind of strange it doesn't come with that when it has everything else, but is what it is. Let's see here. I'll actually bag and tag this thing into the Carter box, which we've got right here, so that'll be handy. Again, there's our part number, and last but not least, cleaned this even more. Now, I don't think you saw anything that I did out there towards the end of the day, but that's a big hole, right? If you're jacked, you know, you might have issues around the bicep, tricep area. Average dude's probably going to be able to get into a shoulder. Again, longer arms better. I was able to clean it pretty thoroughly, I would say. It's super smooth on the inside. I guess it's got like some coating or something the way it's designed. Got it cleaned up. We prepped the pump together. If you'll note, I've gone ahead, I've dropped that in. Some people might try to do the gasket different. In my opinion, it's easier to do it the way I did. The little delta, which if I kind of put my finger there, maybe you can pick it out at some point. It's triangular shaped, and it's pointing right towards those two. We just never have good lighting. So there's your two lines and the delta. I think that's probably the best angle I can get you. So there they are. Went ahead, I've reconnected the EVAP. That is much more simple than it is disconnecting. I also, if you'll note, popped it out right there. Aside from stabbing myself with the pick I was using to lift, got that cleaned up. What you're not seeing at all is the one thing I hadn't touched, which was the bottom side of the tank. I've cleaned that up. It was probably pretty clean in part because of the skid plate. So some people, I don't think many trucks are going to be equipped with the skid plate. If yours is, it's probably a really nice condition on the bottom side. Bottom side of the skid plate I have not cleaned up yet. It's after 8, haven't had supper, gonna run inside, see how my fantasy team's doing in the Vikings game, and get some chicken going while I make tea, and then I'll be able to knock that out tomorrow. I'm thinking I may call this a video in part so I can edit it tonight, have a fresh battery, fresh clean SD card, and we'll get back. I'll just clean that probably off camera and mention it, and then we'll just go about installing this thing. Also still need to clean the tank straps. So there's one over here right there, and the other one. So we'll kind of showcase those like I said, but I guess that's I never know if people want to see, you know, like relatively short by my standards, or just go with the full hour-long process. So I think this will break it down. You'll probably have like 2 25 to 40-minute videos instead of like 1 hour and a half thing. So that'll help people out. The thing is, I do timestamps, so I don't ever feel too terribly bad about it. I did go ahead, I have not tightened that down, but I did go ahead, like I've tightened it by hand. I haven't put, you know, like the spanner wrench or anything to that lock ring. It always seems like it's going on crooked, and finally I just ran with it and it kind of seemed to cinch up even. But it's sort of a pain because you've got 2 points of conflict, obviously one being here, not the yellow cap, but the actual barbed end. The other being the electrical connector, and then believe it or not, this doesn't like to sit either. Plus this regulator here drops way over the, you know, perimeter of that. So all those are kind of minor haphazard. You sort of have to come in, duck down on this side, duck in over here. Keep in mind it's plastic, it does flex, but you don't want to break it. The thing. So yeah, that is that though. That was essentially us taking the tank from drop. I've got that video edited and uploaded. So basically dragging it out, cleaning it, pumping it out, cleaning the tank, prepping the fuel pump, and putting the new fuel pump in. So it's kind of all there is there. I'm going to try to skate by all this so I can use these sawhorses outside tomorrow when I clean that skid plate. But yeah, this thing is like about as clean of an OE tank as you're going to find on a 2nd gen Ram, so I'm pretty happy with that. Hoses actually look really good still. No point in replacing those. Those would be easy to replace versus dropping the tank. But yeah, again, if you have the ability, if you've got the equipment, the space to actually tilt the bed up and you're just doing the pump, I think that's probably the way to go. If you don't have the space, you don't have an engine hoist, you can't bum a ton of help from friends, dropping the tank is definitely an option. It's just a situation where the more fuel in the tank, the worse of a job it's going to be. And in my case, I wanted to get the fuel out. Ironically, that's one of the reasons I went with this instead of my rubber hose. I was thinking, yeah, I can see the state of that fuel as it goes through there. And it actually looked pretty good and it didn't reek. So I'm kind of skewed ever since the C word that they don't let you talk about because it wasn't totally set up by some entities, but whatever. Onions, can't stand onions, and exhaust fuel, those are like smells that never bothered me. Paint, you know, I always had a smell, but like those things have been really weird. This kind of smelled relatively tame. I don't know if that's like in effect, I don't really know. It's been like a year and I still can't do onion anything, so maybe it's just me, but little guy worked pretty good. Obviously a bigger pump, you get it done way faster, but we got basically right at about 12 to 13 gallons out of there. So 2 5-gallon Sunoco's and then a little bit in the bottom of another one. So if you look at the line though, this is the benefit of using this. Number one, it's cheap. If it dries out, if it cracks, who cares? You cut it off, you put a new piece on. But it lets you see the state of the fuel. So if it's like you're getting a mower and somebody said, hey, you know, the guy said it ran when he turned it into the flea market, using this when you evacuate it, you can be like, good Lord, you know, you can see how yellow it is. You can see if there's rust or dirt or debris or anything like that in it. And you can also tell if it looks really good or if it's water. Sometimes, you know, like you go buy something from somebody or something at a, you know, sale of some sort, and they'll be like, oh yeah, it ran great. You know, it's got a full tank of gas. I was going to use it, but it moved. And they'll just feed you a story basically. And sometimes, you know, like people literally will do that just to sell something. So you gotta be leery, you know, caveat emptor. But if you look in there every once in a while, I'll kind of see something. There's a bit of fuel kind of caked right there. It doesn't look that bad. So I don't know. But with that said, I'm going to quit rambling, and I do hope this helped you out. I hope you enjoyed it, learned a little something. Who knows? So yeah, apologies trying to get that thing to show up on the camera. It just wasn't happening for me. I needed a tripod and don't have one back here and couldn't set it up anyway. So with that said, I'm going to make sure this thing's aired out. I'm going to dry it out, probably hit it with some compressed air. I'll bag it and tag it just in case. You never know. you know, that carder could go out and we might not be able to get one, and this is functional, so we could go back to it. It's just one of those things. I like to kind of keep parts, you know, especially if they're functioning, you know, so that's kind of the way. If this was junk, get rid of it, maybe harvest, you know, your evap or some stuff like that, pull the pump out, the sock, whatever you want to do, and you get rid of the body, maybe you can keep the gasket just in case. But that's just me. I like to kind of have stuff on hand. So that said, it's hot in here with the door down. I'm gonna get inside and make my supper, get this thing edited. But yeah, that was that. So when we come back, we're going to take an empty tank, not too heavy, heavier than I thought it would be. It's not like it's heavy though. It's just, you know, I was expecting it to be a featherweight. It's got some decent mass to it, but we'll get it cleaned up the rest of the way. We'll get the skid plate cleaned up. We'll get the tank picked back up, all the connections done. We'll get it in place with the tank straps that we also have to clean. Then we'll get the skid plate on, and then we need to go and find somewhere to unload all of this. It actually, I wonder if I could run it in a mower. It did not seem that bad. But I need to do something with that crud, and then ultimately get new fuel in the truck so we can kind of fire it up and start doing some data logging, tuning, and, you know, calibration type stuff. So getting pretty dadgum close. Still need to do the exhaust, some other stuff, the backup camera. That'll actually be something that I plug in as well. So on that note, I got to get out of here. I'm sweating bullets now. LoneStarMopars.com is the website. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all three at Lone Star Mopars. Also, can't forget to tighten that cap. Hopefully I remember. Thanks again for watching. I'll catch you back for more action from the Ram Revival.